Hello all and welcome to another History with R&R live stream. We've been kind of off and on, but I think we're getting back to normal routine now.
I
How
hope
are we
so.
doing, Jeff?
Oh, pretty good today. How's Robert?
It's
Almost
raining,
called you
so my
rambling.
back is screaming. Um and welcoming our guest, Darth Arlena.
Hello there.
This has been a long
Welcome.
in the works for Mary and Jeff and so we are honored to have you on. How
Thank
are
you.
you doing today?
Oh, it's a beautiful, hot, humid day in the South as always.
Well, we have more rain than I think I ever want to look at. See, we have these wonderful
Send
things
it
where
down here.
last year it was a drought. Farmers couldn't get a drop of water to save their life. This year, however, they could build ponds in their backyards all year long, and it's just bad. But we had record snowfall. Then we've been raining every second day. Excuse me. But before we get to today's topic, because I'm Canadian and I have to be a jerk, uh, happy Treason Day, you rebellious scum.
Thank you.
Happy Independence Day, everybody. We did what the Canadians couldn't.
No, we just didn't feel like it.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly,
see,
Arlena.
what happened was we got a taste of war. We came down, we burnt half of White House, found out that you guys have bad beer, came back home, and then that was the end of that war. But anyway,
You got scared by a tornado. That's all it was.
we have them up here.
I think it was a
Uh-huh.
hurricane. It was a hurricane.
No, we have those crazy buggers that would just sit there and go, "Oh, I'll get a double scotch."
Burned down
Mm,
everything except the commandant of the Marine Corps house.
yeah, that'll work. All right, so we'll let you kind of take off, and then we'll kind of fall in line, and hopefully I don't go completely bat crazy.
It's okay. Well,
Well,
let
I
me
think you're
start
pretty
off.
close.
Let me start off by saying, I love the beginning. Your intro there. I love it. You had Patton in there and Churchill. Oh, it was
Yeah, that's
amazing.
total credit to Loki. Loki did that one
Yeah.
for us. We had Tino Struckman on. It took me 3 months in the making to get him on the channel. I hope to have him back on.
hmm
He just finished a European tour, checking out all the old battle, like World War
hmm
One, World War Two,
hmm
installments and places. So I'm hoping to have him back on. But I had worked for 3 months to get him on, so I had Loki make an intro, and then he threw that one in, and I was just like, "Heck, cool." So yeah,
Yeah.
that's total Loki.
Yeah. And of course, Iwo Jima, as a
Yeah,
former Marine myself, it's always good to see those colors flying on that monument.
absolutely.
Yep. But I think we were talking before, and we're gonna talk about the Princes in the Tower.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I happen to bring up something that I somewhat know a little bit about, and yeah, not all the ins and outs or the names because some of them get redonkulous or repetitive. Um, King Henry the VII, King Henry the VIII. Really?
Yeah.
Can she
There's a
be
lot of them.
original? Please, or Elizabeth the mother, and then Elizabeth the queen. Get original, folks, please.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there's only been one Stephen and one John as
yes.
kings. So, yeah, can we repeat at least a Stephen?
Yeah. There's rumors that Charles wants John.
Oh boy, that would not be good. I mean, we all
Or
know how
Richard.
John went.
Yeah. Or
Magna
Richard.
Carta.
Yeah. Or Richard, the other one.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The one responsible for the Princes in the Tower.
yes.
So, it was Edward's children, his two oldest boys, which were Edward and Richard. And of course, Edward died, and Edward, his son, was supposed to be crowned king. Well, I guess Richard didn't like that too much. He was supposed to be the Lord Protector, but he figured, I'd rather be king.
Yeah.
So let me put you two boys in here to protect you. And actually, initially, it was only Edward, his son, that was in the tower. And Richard was with his mother, who had claimed, what's the word? Sanctuary
Yeah.
inside the church. And he convinced her through the bishop of the church to let Richard come and be a part of the ceremony for his brother. Well, when he got both the boys, that's when things kind of hit the fan.
Yeah. And a very important thing to mention, the only reason that he gets away with this is both children are underage,
Hmm.
which is why they can't ascend the throne right away, because they found out, you know, very early on, you put a child on the throne without any help and things can go a little astray.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he that's what Richard was supposed to be there to help. And to Edward's credit, when he chose Richard to be the Lord Protector, it was because Richard had been nothing but faithful to him
Yep.
throughout his entire reign, his entire life, really. Richard was nothing but completely 100% faithful to him, unlike their other brother, the Duke of Clarence, who, was found guilty and decided he wanted to die in a vat of wine.
You know, oops.
Yeah. So there was no reason at the time for anyone to think that Richard would do anything other than the honorable thing and be the Lord Protector until Edward reached appropriate age and could
Yeah.
reign on his own. But there's a lot of controversy out there. People say that it was um Henry's mother that killed the boys. It was Henry that had the
Well,
boys killed,
but that
but
doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't. It
For the
doesn't.
mother to be the one who offs them, because the mother ends up offed anyway,
No, no,
doesn't
Henry's
she?
mother.
I
Henry's
always
mother.
thought that he got rid of her like shortly after the boys
No.
went missing.
No, she was still in sanctuary until after the final Wars of the Roses happened.
Okay.
And then she came out because Henry VII married her daughter.
Oh yes,
Um, my mind is going blank.
that's fine.
Elizabeth of York.
Okay.
Elizabeth of York was her daughter. Elizabeth Woodville was the mother, who was
Okay.
married to Edward. And essentially that's how it all came, because there was a rumor way back when that Edward wasn't actually a legitimate son. And after Edward died, that's when Richard kind of was like, I can use this old rumor to my advantage. All the
Oh yes.
meanwhile, slapping his mother in the face, basically, because she
Yeah.
was still alive.
Yeah. There's a Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner you don't want to be around.
Yeah, not at all. But I mean, this when you get into all of it's so much details and stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. But
And I guess the craziest thing about the whole thing is, to this day we don't know what happened to the boys.
no, mm-mm.
Like nobody does. One day they're in the tower, next day they're not.
Hmm. Yep. They said their doctor had came to check on them at least 2 to 3 times a week, and he went there one day and they were there, and then he went back and he was turned away.
Yeah.
And last time anyone had seen them, they were in the courtyard playing, and then all of a sudden nobody's seen them anymore. And I'm a firm believer that it was Richard, because he had the means, the
Yeah.
motive, and he had everything.
Who wore the crown? Usually
Yeah,
that's who
yeah.
you look at in those,
Hmm.
especially in those days. I mean, whoever wore the crown probably did it.
Oh yeah.
Or whoever was pushing for the person to go to the throne.
Hmm.
I mean, there's some crazy stories of, mothers and the things they do to get their kid on the
Hmm.
throne is
Yeah.
insane.
Well, and that's
Um,
and that's the thing too, is the Duke of Buckingham what became very close with Richard, and he was the one that started pushing Richard and putting the idea in his head to become king instead of just Lord Protector.
Yeah.
And Buckingham has been another one named as the one that killed the kids. But I think if it was Buckingham, I don't have any doubt that it was him that essentially ended up killing them. But I think he did it at Richard's request.
Yeah. I've never doubted that it was Richard. Richard had the means, the power, and the
Hmm.
ability to make sure that it happened, and it happened discreetly.
Hmm. Means, motive, and opportunity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially once the boys were in the tower.
Hmm. And
Then
what better way to secure your throne than to get rid of the only two, even though they had been declared bastards?
yeah.
People didn't really look at them as bastards. They
No.
they saw them as the legitimate heirs to the throne still.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be the first time that a bastard son raised an army and ended up wearing a fancy hat. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, realistically here, um so in a sense, if he was going to take the throne, they had to go.
Yeah, regardless, they had to go.
They had to go. If he's taking the throne in any way, shape, or form, they have to go.
Hmm.
And to us modern, in modern day, that's like, really? Wow, a little cruel there. But back in that, the throne was no laughing matter.
Mm-mm.
Um, I always say that Game of Thrones is the real thing mild
Yeah,
because
it really is.
it really is like they excluding the last two seasons, but even that first season where it seemed like everybody was dying left, right, and center,
Hmm.
that's still mild compared to the War of the Roses era.
Hmm.
Like just mild because your own best friend that you grew up with your entire life next day has a knife in your back.
Hmm.
If it
And
meant getting
happened
closer
all
to
the
the
time.
throne,
Hmm. Yep. And I mean, that's the War of the Roses was the war of cousins.
yeah,
The Lancasters and the Yorks were cousins. They all came from Henry. Um, was it Henry the First or Henry the Second?
yeah,
I
the
can never
blueprint for the
remember.
Hatfields and McCoys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. I I don't believe that um Henry the Seventh's mother had them killed. She didn't have it. She didn't have the ability to get
no,
to the boys. There
she
was
didn't have
no
the
way.
ability to get to the boys, and not only that, but it would benefit her for one of those kids to hit the throne
Mhm.
because then she would not have to be in hiding anymore.
Mhm.
Because as mother to the king, nobody's touching you with a 50-foot pole,
Mm-mm.
or they'll be on a 50-foot pole.
Yeah.
Right? There's
Mhm.
so it benefited her for one of the boys to take the throne.
Mhm. Yeah. Give me a second. I'm looking something up real quick. Mother. That's for the life of me. Oh, Margaret Beaufort. I don't know why I could not think of her name.
Mhm.
Henry the Seventh's mother, Margaret Beaufort. She's accused of it. Henry the Seventh is accused of it. But again, they didn't have Henry the Seventh at the time. Henry Tudor was in France.
Yeah.
He had no way to get to the boys. Now, Margaret Beaufort was in England, but because she was married to who she was married to, she was on basic house arrest.
Yeah.
The only reason she wasn't thrown into the tower and beheaded was because of her husband.
Yeah.
And she made a
But I
smart
mean,
move with that marriage.
I think a lot of people don't understand, like they'll go to London now, they'll get to go through the tower and ooh, there's torture devices and ooh, there's cells. And the tower back then, if you said you're going to the tower, in all likelihood, the person will be like, you know, this prison that's really terrible over down the corner? Yeah, can I go there instead?
Yeah.
Because the tower, you're definitely dead. Um, there's no questions
Yeah.
about it. You are done. Once you enter the tower, you're exiting feet first.
And what's crazy is it really didn't become that until Richard the Third into Henry the Eighth. That's
Yeah,
when it started making that turn into pretty much a prison and a death sentence. Because prior to that, it's where all the crown's heads went before their coronation. It's where the queen stayed. It's where um, all of Henry's wives stayed before they were married to him, with the
yeah.
exception of Anne of Cleves.
Mm,
Poor Anne of Cleves. But it was a wonderful, very luxurious place. And I think when that happened with the princes, and it actually goes back before that, because there were, you have Henry the Sixth that was killed in the tower. You had, oh, was it Richard the First? I don't remember if he was killed in the tower, if he was killed in one of the castles. I can't remember, but you had him that was killed. So you did have people through history that
yeah,
were killed, but it wasn't really looked at as
it wasn't.
ominous.
It wasn't a
And
place to be feared.
hmm until you get into Richard the Third, into
Yeah,
Henry the Seventh, Henry the Eighth, and from that point on, you just don't want to go to the tower.
yeah. It's
hmm
like that whole period. People were dropping like flies, especially if you
hmm
challenge the throne. Um, and it wouldn't even need to be a strong challenge.
hmm
Mainly, it's just you look sideways at the throne, and
hmm
you all of a sudden disappeared. Um,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
happened to tell Henry VIII that he looked fat in his new armor. Um, duck. Um,
Yeah, Henry the Eighth was yeah, yeah.
but I mean, the boys in the tower. I think it doesn't get told a lot because it's it's kind of dark, especially in the modern era, because anything to do with children, people are like, no, won't touch that with a 50-foot pole.
hmm
No, nada, not gonna happen. But I think it's really interesting, especially the fact that in a lot of ways it's one of the biggest missing persons. It would be like Johnny Depp all of a sudden disappearing off the face of the planet tomorrow.
Well, everybody's gonna look at Amber Heard for that one.
Well, yeah, yeah. But you know what I
True.
mean? Like, it would be somebody of his stature all of a sudden just
hmm
disappearing.
Yeah,
Just poof, gone.
yeah. Because as
And
far as the people of England knew, they knew that Edward the Fourth had died, so his son was, the new king. And all of a sudden, nope, Edward the Fifth isn't in. It's Richard the Third, and because it took time back then for word to get around, and people were like, "Wait a minute, what?
yeah.
What?"
What? Um, like the the throne itself, especially back then, it kind of was like in modern day, if Elizabeth died tomorrow, God forbid, because then we'd have Charles. But you know, everyone would know 5 minutes after the press release,
hmm
like
Yeah,
worldwide.
Yeah.
Whereas
back
back
then. Yeah.
then, that shite took time,
hmm
especially even to hit France,
Oh
who were
yeah.
very keen in knowing who was on the throne.
hmm
Um, and it
And
would take
Spain.
them a while to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, and they would find out from their people that were inside the court.
Yeah.
But it was funny because after he had the boys declared illegitimate, and then he takes the crown and says it's his crown. And there was some pushback, but when he beheaded, uh, gosh, who was it? He beheaded without trial. Forgive me, I can't think of his name. Um, but he was a straight line. He was what's fair is fair. He was very loyal to Edward, very loyal to his son, and freaking Richard and Buckingham just chopped his head off. No
Yep.
trial, no nothing. And when people saw that, they were like,
Well then, all hail the
"Okay,
king.
you want to be king? We'll okay. Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah, yeah. Well, we're on board. Yeah,
we're
this
on
is
board."
all good. Yep, public opinion just went up by 4 points. Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
Uh, I like my head
Mhm.
where it is. Thanks.
Yeah.
Right.
Because back in the day, that was the reality of it. You were very careful what you said, especially when it came to certain royals, because if you didn't, you lost your head, or other body parts, or yeah, and depending on which royal it is and which country. Vlad had a wonderful way to get his opinion polls up.
Yeah,
Um,
he did. But the people of Wallachia and Transylvania and Romania, they love to this day. They love
oh
him.
yeah, he's worshipped like a king because he did do a lot of good for them, but he just was a little twisted in how he got there. Um, I mean, there's the famous story of, okay, that army is going to destroy mine. It's too big. I can't fight it. I know what I'll do. This is the route they're taking. Yeah, I'm going to line it with people on pegs.
Hmm. And it freaked them out.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
It was like, yeah,
no.
screw this. I'm out.
Hmm.
Like, it worked. It did the job. Shock and
Hmm.
awe, and it's all with glory.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, that era was you didn't mess around, especially during the Tudor age,
Oh no, 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 you didn't. You did not.
because I mean, even like I said, children were not off limits.
Mm-mm,
Children of children weren't off limits either.
mm-mm.
Second cousin, third removed. What's that? He has 5 people. Well, that classifies as an army. He must be coming, and he's coming to London. I'll wipe him out.
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
that's the reality. Anything that was seen as a threat to the throne
Hmm.
was met with unanswering. That was your first, last, and ending mistake.
Yeah, yeah. You didn't mess with the king. Um,
Nope.
although with few exceptions. This was something that I looked at just the other day. I was watching something, and there was a question asked: Why did the kings of England just freely behead whoever they wanted to? And the answer was, well, they didn't. There are a few exceptions, but if you look back, each and every one of them had a trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, the trial was rigged to
Oh,
go
of
the way
course.
that the king
Obviously.
wanted it to go. But they all still had trials, again, with a few exceptions. So technically, the king didn't behead a whole lot of people.
Well, even then, they were politicians. They had to
Yeah.
save face,
Mhm.
right? You
Mhm.
can't have your people. You ruled with an iron fist, but you didn't rule with so much of an iron fist that your own people turned against you, because that ended
Mhm.
badly.
Oh, very.
Um, ask a few French kings.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, Richard the First, you know, when he came to the throne, he was just a child. And then you had your the um the peasants revolt,
mhm.
and Wat Tyler, he Richard confronted Wat Tyler. He was an older teen at the time. And he said, "Look, I am your king. I will lead you. Go home. Don't do this." And Wat Tyler came at him, and well, he was killed right then and there.
Yeah. Well, any other questions?
Yeah. But he quailed the
And
peasants' revolt,
yeah,
just by speaking to the people.
yeah.
So, with that, he ended up being a horde king, but
Oh,
he was learning stuff then, and he learned that if I talk to these people, they'll do what I tell them to do.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So,
The crown,
yeah.
the crown weighs heavy.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's often been asked, why would anybody want that? But it has everything to do with power.
Yep.
Everything to do with power.
But in a way, like a lot of people don't realize, like they think that a lot of the kings, especially in that era, like War of the Roses type era,
Mhm.
the kings just sat in the castles. No,
Mm-mm.
no. If they went to war, they were at the front.
Mhm.
And they even
Yeah.
had the darn crown on the helmet, so they had this big "shoot me" sign on their head.
Yeah.
So
They definitely led from the front.
they didn't hide in their office and go destroy them, please. I mean, you did have a
Mhm.
few that did that, but they were never looked at with the same uh,
Respect.
respect as, say, Richard the Lionheart
Mhm.
or anybody like that.
Well,
People,
even talking Richard III, as much as I have a lot of disdain for him, I completely respect the fact that he went out to the Battle of Bosworth to face Henry Tudor, and he said, "I will come back king, or I will come back on my shield.
yeah,
Either way, he's gonna win or he's gonna be dead." He
yeah,
already knew,
it's one
and
way
he
or the
was the
other.
last king of England to be killed in battle.
Yeah, but it just it was the way it was.
Yeah.
Yes, you had a lot of power, but with that power, there were certain responsibilities you had to account for.
Hmm. Yep. And it's funny how it changes over time because you look back at John and we got the Magna Carta because he abused his power so
Yep.
much. And then you go into Henry VIII, where he became more like a king of France, where he controlled everything.
Yeah.
And then you get into the Stuarts to where it starts to change, and Charles the First is beheaded. And then after that, we have, the monarchy comes back, but it comes back with less power. And then you get William and Mary, where you have Parliament, to where that's when it really becomes they're just figureheads.
Yeah. But I mean, I would say um it's kind of hit and miss the last few.
Hmm.
Like Elizabeth II right now. She walks into a room, she says something, it's usually done.
Oh yeah.
She doesn't have the political clout, but who's going to argue with her?
Yeah,
Is usually the
she
Mm.
question, right?
yeah, she definitely
Um
has the power. But she's been
right.
on the throne for what, 70
Yeah,
years, 70
and the
70
something.
other one
years.
that
Yeah.
had that was Victoria.
Hmm. Yep. And before her, it was actually the king that the Americans defeated, George III, because were it not for Victoria and now Elizabeth, he was the longest reigning monarch in history.
Yeah.
So I think it was 62 years for him, even though the majority of it was under a regency because he was cuckoo.
You just-
He
Although,
still
I
gets that
mean,
credit.
some people can argue Victoria in the later years was a little, well, after her husband died,
Her last
went
40
a
years on the throne.
little
Yeah.
sideways.
Hmm.
We are not amused. She never spoke in the first person. It was always we. We do
It's
not
the
like this.
royal we.
Yes, we are not amused. Um, you know, but the royal family is interesting, and a lot of people don't even realize that the fact that they're called the House of Windsor
Mm-hmm.
has only been since World War One.
Yeah, under George V.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because they might have had German ties and they were kind of at war with Germany,
Mm-hmm.
so
And it
maybe
was
not having a German name
extremely,
would be a good idea.
yeah, it was
Uh,
extremely
hmm,
unpopular because they were at that time, because of Victoria marrying Albert, they were the House of Saxe Coburg Gotha.
yeah,
And George V was like, yeah, we should probably change that.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, we're kind of at war with Germany right now. Maybe we should. Yeah, we're now the House of Windsor, folks.
Hmm.
Isn't that a castle, sire? Yeah, just shut up and do it.
Just go
Yeah.
with it.
um,
But yeah. And it actually took them a long time to decide on what to call themselves, because they played with the idea of renaming him Tudor and renaming it Stuart and renaming it maybe Hanover, but that was still German,
mhm,
or maybe going back to Plantagenet, and they were like, no, we got to think of something new. It took them quite a while to come
yeah,
up with Windsor. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was actually the king's secretary that said, "Why don't you just call yourself Windsor?" And it was just like a off the cuff remark that
yeah,
he made to the king, and the king was like, "Huh,
I like
hmm,
that.
I like that."
Yeah, uh, but
It's just the oldest castle in England and
yeah.
probably in all of Europe.
Well, Elizabeth still summers there once in a while.
Hmm. Yeah, that's actually her residence when
Yep.
she's not at Buckingham Palace. She's either at Windsor or at Sandringham. Is that
Yeah.
how you say it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then once in a while she'll be at Buckingham.
Hmm.
Mainly when
Usually when
Parliament's
she's
in.
working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, although if the reports are true, she never stops. No matter if she's at
No.
Windsor or she's at somewhere, she always gets the red box, no matter
Yeah.
where.
Well, and that's the same with any monarch, even if you're quote unquote vacation. Um, uh, from learning more about Victoria, even when they were on the Isle of Wight, she still got that red box every
Yep.
day. And the Isle of Wight was their vacation away from London so they could just be a family, but she still got that red box every day.
Oh yeah.
She always knew what was going on.
Although I always do find it a little humorous, um, that the children and her husband at first greeting of the Queen always had to bow or curtsy.
Hmm.
First time. After that, it
Yep.
was you
Hmm.
can drop the ceremony, but first time.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder
Archer
how many
Collin, the
times
whole,
that she let her husband slide on that one.
yeah. Like what Archer Collin has to say, the whole royal family is German, really annoys him. How many generations does a family have to live in a country to be from there? Well, the children born of William and Kate are the most English
Yeah,
ever.
yeah,
They are true English. Their blood is pretty much all English.
yeah,
Very little German left in there.
yeah. Well, and I mean, if you think back to World War One, it's crazy to think that Russia, England, and Germany were
We're
all
all
ruled by
monarchies.
cousins.
Mhm.
They were all cousins. The reigning
Mhm.
monarchs were all cousins at that point,
Yep. And
and
how much uh England and the King of England and the Russian Tsar looked alike. They
mm,
really could have passed as twin brothers,
yeah,
but they were cousins. And actually, when they met before the war broke out, they dressed up in each other's um, uniforms, and nobody knew the difference until they opened their mouths.
mm-hmm, yeah,
It's a funny little
and
true story.
and the really ironic part is the only royal family that survived World War One was Britain.
Was England, yeah. hmm
The
And
German
yes,
royal family was gone. The Russian royal family
yeah,
was gone, not by their choice.
mhm,
Um,
yeah. And Chris Perza, yeah, if Prince Philip was uh, a Greek prince, but the family still came from Germany because up until World War One, when the name of Windsor, when George V changed the name, he also changed it to where you do not, if you're royalty, you do not have to marry from within Germany. Prior to that, if you were royalty, you only married out of Germany.
yeah.
That was the rules. When he changed the name, that rule changed as well.
And then the one king decided, right before World War II that, I was going to marry American, and then, well, that ended badly.
Yeah.
Uh, well,
hmm
it was two strikes. One, married American, second, divorcee. That was a problem.
Well, it wasn't that she was an American. It was that she had
She was
been
the
divorced
divorcee. Yeah,
twice before.
divorcee. And, well, what really did him in, I think, in all honesty, looking back, and as much as I've looked into it, because it's fascinating as hell, I think he could have got away with it. I think he could have got away with him being on the throne with her as his wife, and maybe even snuck in the queen title. The
I
problem
don't think that ever would have
is
flown.
who his best friend was.
Oh, Hitler.
Yeah, that was the problem.
But I don't think that was the only problem.
Oh yeah, that was the only reason Churchill wanted him out.
The biggest issue was that she had been twice divorced.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
remember,
but that was the excuse.
this is a different time, and it was looked down
Oh
upon
yeah, but
if
it's
you were
still, that was the
divorced
True.
in
excuse.
general.
Yeah, that was the excuse though. Because they needed him out, because there's been reports now, like, that have come out now that, Queen Mom's gone, and that they were hiding things
hmm
because they didn't know how much, like in his red box, they didn't know how much of that was going the other way.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's like because he was in France. Edward is who we're talking about. Edward the Seventh.
yeah,
Um, he abdicated so that he could marry her, and it's awful funny that um, while he was in France, that's when France was invaded, and France was only invaded the specific spots that the French had pointed out were their weak points.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
crazy.
it just, to me, I think my own theory has always been that in time, I think he could have got away with it. The major problem was his leanings towards Germany.
hmm
That was the major he was a security risk.
Big time. That's why
War
they
was
sent him to
brewing. War was
Bahamas.
brewing, and they knew it was coming, and he couldn't be trusted on the throne.
So they gave him the ultimatum.
Yeah. And they
And
used the divorcee angle as, well, here's the legitimate reason why you can't be on the throne, sir. Because he could have gotten away with it if he would have said, she's my wife, period, full stop. But
mm,
he was hell-bent and determined she would be called queen. And
mhm.
that was the sticking point.
Yeah, I don't think they would have let him do it regardless.
No.
I just because that completely different time. Divorce was looked down upon big time back then,
Yes.
especially if you were a woman and you initiated the divorce and there wasn't really a reason for it,
Yeah.
which is what she had done twice before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now you look at Charles.
hmm Now
And
it's accepted.
Charles is going to be able to take the throne. There's no question about it.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm Yeah, which kind of wish it would go right to William, but it is what it is.
That's pretty
A lot
much
of
the
people do.
overall consensus there.
Yeah.
But that whole family is just interesting.
Yeah,
Just
it is.
going through, especially the further back you go, the more you go that this is fiction.
Hmm.
This is
No.
like hi-fi, sci-fi. This can't have happened, right? No,
Yeah.
they didn't do that. Yeah, they did. They
Yeah,
did
that's why I
worse.
always say
Holes.
I always say history is so much more interesting than what Hollywood gives us because
Oh yeah.
and we were talking about early Game of Thrones, the what did they call it? The Red Wedding.
Yeah.
That actually happened in real
Hmm.
history.
Yeah. Like
I mean,
it's
that
crazy
legit
because
happened.
we don't think about things in like we know it was different. We know that it was, but we don't really, oh, well, that couldn't have happened. They wouldn't have done that. And the
Hmm.
problem with that is we look back on history, and I've said this a million times on this channel. We look back at history with modern eyes.
And you can't.
You can't. You
Mm-mm.
Right.
cannot apply modern ideologies or modern expectations to 1876.
Mm-mm.
It's just not going to work.
No, completely different time, completely different thoughts, completely different
Yep.
moral values. Everything was so different, so vastly different than what
Yeah.
we are today. That's why I saw a quote somewhere. I think it was an anonymous quote, but it said, history is not there for you to change it. It's there for us to learn.
Yeah.
It's not just your history, it's my history too. So don't erase it.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is history. If one does not know it, the famous quote, "One does not know thy history, thou shall repeat it."
Hmm.
So if you erase history, guess what we're gonna do, folks? Repeat it.
And Archer Collin brings up a good point. Edward having to advocate to marry Wallace Simpson and Henry II marrying the divorced Eleanor of Aquitaine. Fun fact, Eleanor of Aquitaine was not considered divorced. Her marriage was dissolved by the Catholic Church because of her close relation to the French king who she was married to.
Yeah.
That is why they were able to marry, and she wasn't considered divorced. She was actually considered as having never been married.
Yeah. It was absolved from the papers.
Hmm.
The what I think, and this is kind of out of the scope of the channel, but oh well. One of my, as much as I'm not looking forward to Elizabeth passing, the one thing I am looking kind of interesting to see is if she holds true to one of the speeches she gave about 5 years ago, and that will be that if that when she passes, she will be the last royal to head the Church of England,
Hmm.
which means
I,
Charles won't get it.
and I think it'll be interesting to see too if the Commonwealth holds.
Yeah, under
Mm.
Charles.
Yeah,
If Charles is smart, he's going to send William out front and center as much as humanly possible.
yeah.
As much as humanly possible.
He'll sit in
William
the
will be
background.
front and
Yep,
center.
and send William to do out everything.
Yeah.
He should immediately make him Prince of Wales,
Yes.
and
Well, he will de facto he'll go
yeah,
Prince of
but
Wales
I
because
think they
the
should
royal
still
in
have the
waiting is always
ceremony.
Prince of Wales.
I think they should still have the ceremony.
Oh yes.
But
There's going to be a lot of
yeah.
ceremonies when that happens. Um, just the funeral alone for Elizabeth is going to be crazy.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, is it gonna be crazy.
That's going to be something that's going to be
Hmm.
like, I didn't know that many people could fit in London.
Yeah. But what's funny too is she could live to be, what was her mother, was 102,
101.
103? Oh, she was
101.
101.
I
So
think it was
Elizabeth
101 or
could,
102.
yeah, Elizabeth
Yeah.
could very easily live to 101, 102.
Well, the old joke was between my friend and I was when the Queen Mother turned 100. We all wanted to know what the letter stated because And it's probably a letter that just gets auto-generated. But if you live within the Commonwealth, you get a letter at 100 from Buckingham,
Oh wow.
from the Queen, congratulating you on your 100th birthday. So we were like, I wonder what she wrote to her mother. Or did she just pick up the phone and go, do I really have to do this? Yeah. Really?
Mhm.
Come over for tea. How about that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh man. Yes, Archer history is fun. I don't think it's that confusing, but
Yeah. Well, another
I've
fun fact about the Queen Mum, she drove her Secret Service insane.
yeah.
Because what she'd do is they'd be driving and she would say, stop the car. And she'd say, stop the car near a pub. Just a pub, a random pub.
Just to
Okay.
go in and say hi and get a
No,
pint.
no. To go in, she'd go downstairs. She would grab a pool cue and start playing pool
Wow.
randomly.
Oh gosh.
No pre-planning, no nothing. Just pull the car over. I feel like a game. What?
Mhm.
Okay, here we go. And the Queen
Ah,
Mother would come downstairs and play pool. Um,
yeah, and the Queen Mom, she got around well and was a very sound mind until she got over, a couple months after her 100th is when she really started going to decline. Not mentally,
no,
but
just
physically.
physically, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Well,
She was
I
always
always
sharp as a
wondered.
tack.
I always wondered growing up, like you'd listen to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth has, I think, the quickest wit I've ever seen in a person ever. She'll just
Mhm.
come up with something, a snarky comment, or a way to shut somebody down without really shutting them down.
Like when she went
Ver-
to Scotland and
yeah,
said, "Think
very.
about what you do before you vote."
Or the I love going to Ireland, but one never
Mhm.
knows when one might get shot. Like a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Um, back when the IRA was big.
Yeah.
But I always wondered where she got it from. And then I know my British friends are gonna get mad at me. And then Diana died. And Elizabeth was getting a whole bunch of flack because
Mhm.
she was not at Buckingham.
Mhm.
She was not at the palace. And the other thing, when Elizabeth did eventually get to Buckingham, the royal standard was at full mast, which sent people over the edge.
Mhm.
And those both Elizabeth's speeches, the Queen Mother's and the Queen's herself, was the biggest dressing down without dressing down I've ever seen in my life.
Mhm.
Because the Queen Mum got asked that question, what do you think about the royal standard not being dropped to half mast? And she paused and she just looked, why would the standard be lowered? It wasn't lowered for my husband.
Yeah.
And he was king.
Mhm.
Um, just
Yeah.
all right, moving on. And then Elizabeth, when she finally made her televised speech to the nation, as it were,
Mhm.
she went, I'm not only coming to you as your queen, but as a grandmother. Oh, that
Mhm.
hurt.
Shots fired.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not only coming as your queen, but as a
Yeah.
grandmother who's been comforting her grandchildren. Anybody else have a
Yeah.
problem?
Yeah. And I think that's something that people didn't think about. They forgot at the moment that she's these children's grandmother and they just lost their mother.
Yeah, yeah,
Somebody had to break the news to them, and B, they're gonna need some comforting.
yeah.
And
But and it just those two were just like
yeah,
knockout punch and it was so politely done. It
it
was
was.
just like, are you with me now?
It's
Kind of
like
thing.
we always hear Canadians are all like
Oh,
super
Elizabeth can tell
super
somebody
nice, but
off without telling them off. My
yeah.
favorite Elizabeth story, and I shared it with Jeff once because I showed him the video. and it's when Elizabeth came to the States. President Bush Jr. was president,
Mm-hmm.
and he's standing on the White House lawn. And the last time Elizabeth was in the United States was for a 200 bicentennial, and it was in 1976.
Mm-hmm.
So he's standing there and in front of God and everyone, and the Elizabeth is standing about right here. He says the last time Queen Elizabeth was in the United States was in 1876. The look she shoots him immediately. The words written on her face is, "You are lucky I can't chop heads off right now." And Bush comments on that later, and he says, "Oh yes, she shot me a look that only a grandmother can give."
Uh-huh.
He knew he up.
Yeah, yeah, he did.
just
But
a tad.
yeah, and that's funny. She has seen so many prime ministers and so many presidents.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. I mean, she
Well, she
started
started
with
out with the
Winston
best.
Churchill.
Yeah, she started out with Churchill. Well,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best. I mean, his prime minister days, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
Lord of the Admiralty, no, you want him far away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Far away from the Lord of the Admiralty. But you did okay as prime minister for the most part. He had a few faults. But he was the voice they needed, the spokesman
Yeah,
when he
he
needed to
was.
be. And some of my favorite political quotes come from Churchill himself.
Oh yeah.
After the 45 election, some of the dumbest people on the planet are voters.
Yes,
Because he lost the
because he
election.
lost the election after winning the war.
After winning the war, he
Ugh.
lost the election for being a warmonger because he was warning that Russia needed to be pushed back. And
Mm-hmm.
hello,
He was
Cold War.
right. He was
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, he was right. But
Which is
he
why he got
lost the
elected
election
again.
on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Archer says there has been some fantastic memes on Discord, not just on Discord, but on Twitter with Her Majesty. I got to give credit to Mark, the Infinitely Tired. He has done some
Oh yes.
fantastic
Yeah.
memes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are so hilarious. And he does it every year, y'all. So look for Mark's memes every
Yeah.
4th of July.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does make you wonder what she thinks, though.
Um, well, actually, to expand on that, I wonder what she thinks, considering the fact that I don't know if the record still stands, but for a long time, the biggest crowd Elizabeth has ever gotten for appearing somewhere was in the United States.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny how Americans love British royalty. It's like we fought to get away from them,
Yeah, yeah.
and now we love them. What
Oh,
is wrong
especially
with
Elizabeth.
us?
Elizabeth lands and it's
You
just
want what you don't have.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that Charles would be able to get that kind of a reaction.
No, William would.
No.
William and Kate, yes.
Yes,
Rock
absolutely.
stars.
Hmm.
But Charles, not so much.
No, I don't see
Um,
it happening with Charles.
he's-
I don't see him doing a royal tour after he gets crowned either.
he might. Well,
You
see,
think so?
what I'm interested to see is if he has the same reaction that Victoria's son did. Because
Oh, finally.
Victoria's son had to wait forever to get the
Hmm.
throne.
Then he only reigned for 10 years.
Yeah,
Well, 9 years, but
yeah. But there's an old story, and I would love to be able to certifiably know that this is accurate. But I heard it said a couple of times, and I like it, so I tell it anyway. But apparently, and don't take it with a grain of salt, the day after Victoria passes, the king is walking down the pier by all the Navy ships that are in port, and the flags are at half mast. And he walks up to the highest ranking Navy officer and asks why the flags are at half mast. And he said, well, because the queen is dead. And his answer was, yeah, but your king lives now. Raise your flags. Because he'd been in waiting forever.
60. She reigned for 62 years. He had been waiting for right around 50 years, if I'm not mistaken.
And now Charles finds himself in the exact same boat.
Yeah, he
Yep.
does. Yeah.
So it'll
Yep.
be interesting. Does he take the throne with humility, or does he? It's about bloody time. Give me that thing.
Yeah. And he says he wants to change stuff and move stuff. He wants to
Oh yeah,
move. He doesn't want Buckingham to be the head of state anymore. He wants it to be back at Windsor, and
yeah.
you know,
Well, they basically live out of there now,
yeah.
so that kind of makes sense. Buckingham is more of a tourist attraction than anything.
Well, Windsor is as well.
Yes.
That's how they rebuilt it, by letting people come in, pay to
Yeah.
come in and tour it. So either way, they're both tourist attractions. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, you always Buckingham Palace has always been the mainstay,
Mm-hmm.
and moving capitals is never a good idea.
Mm-mm.
Ask Rome.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Since since George the Fourth,
yeah,
because he's the one that built up Buckingham to what it is today.
yeah, and
Um,
then I mean, just everything with the cathedral right there, and
hmm
it's kind of the royal hub. Um, but I think we've kind of meandered off topic, so
we did,
we'll
We did.
but it
but
was
that's
all
okay.
still in relation
Yeah, it was
to
all in
each
relation
other.
to the crazy
Yeah.
royal family.
Yeah.
That could give, the Lord of the Rings, any other fantasy king show a run for its money
Oh yeah.
every day of the week.
Yeah. If there's
Yeah.
anybody out there that doesn't know, especially any European history, but specifically English history, go look it up, because this is it's far superior to anything Hollywood is doing,
Oh yeah.
and it will blow your mind some of the stuff you see. Feel like, what the hell? They actually did that? Oh my gosh! I thought it
Yeah.
was a lie. No, it's true. It's all true.
Yeah, yeah. Oh well, we just decided, the Irish needed another butt whooping today, so we're gonna walk over the bridge, or
Yeah.
the French are pissing us off. Let's go fight them for a little while.
hmm
Yeah.
Huh, that was an on
Um,
and off thing forever.
oh,
Oh my gosh, England and
the
France.
there's the French navy yards built up a lot of the Royal Navy because they just kept capturing all the French ships. Um,
Yep.
you know, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Take that as you may. So with that, I'll let Jeff advertise his stuff. Arlena advertise her stuff. I'll say a couple things and then we'll get out of here. So Jeff, take her away.
Well, I co-host a couple of other channels on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time. We do Jeopardy on John DeMarco's channel. If you want to be a contestant, just come to the channel, and while we're live, you can go into the backstage. We'll put the link into the chat. We have a lot of fun just doing Star Trek trivia, sci-fi trivia. So if you want to be on there, just show up. And Sundays at 4:30 Eastern, I'm on A Question of Trek, and we have a lot of fun on that show, a lot of banter. I think people come just for the banter more than the quiz, but we also have the quiz that goes along with it. So just tune in for those shows, and we'll see you there.
All right. And Arlena, what do you got rocking and rolling?
Well, as always, the VacTube Tuesdays at 6 Central. I think it's 6 Central, 7 Eastern. We have such a blast over there. If you guys don't catch us over there, what are you missing? Because you'll just laugh uncontrollably for most of the show. My sides end up hurting by the end of them. Uh, on Tuesdays, Wednesdays is on my channel. Arwen, Avalon, and myself do Sugar and Spice, and that is at 5 Eastern or 6 Eastern. I'm sorry, 6 Eastern. And Friday is our karaoke on the VacTube, courtesy of Mr. Rambling Robert up there. He inspired us. You guys make sure you're tuning into karaoke on his channel on
Yes.
Saturday nights.
Absolutely.
And on Saturday afternoons, again, the VacTube at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. And that's pretty much where I'm at. And coming soon, on my channel, we'll be doing History of the Ancient World with Coach.
Awesome.
Nice.
Keep it'll be advertised on Discord and also on Twitter, so you guys keep your eyes out for that.
Awesome. All right.
Will
So,
do.
first of all, I do want to thank the VacTube for taking over karaoke while I was otherwise engaged while Mary was here.
Our
It
pleasure.
was greatly appreciated. Karaoke didn't happen last Saturday because I was sick as a dog. So that me and sick and live streaming just don't go together. So hopefully, now that I'm feeling a lot better, I should be good to go this Saturday as long as nothing else goes wrong. If it would stop raining. And also
Send it down here. We need rain.
Right.
bloody hell. Send it anywhere. I'll send the snow too.
Please
But
do.
yeah. The show should be returning as normal. Rambling Canuck is going to take a little bit of a stage right. Going to be a little bit more gaming and a lot less talking about stuff that annoy me. But we will still have a few other shows that we normally do, but kind of moving more towards gaming and karaoke, of course. As well as what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. This Friday, the roundtable returns. We recorded it this morning. So, yay. And who knows, maybe one of these days you'll even see me on Question of Trek. But that's still in the maybe category.
Well, you're always welcome.
And with that, folks, one last time, I'm going to say this before I hit the outro. Happy Treason Day, you rebel scum. All
Happy
right.
4th of July,
And
everybody.
with that,
Happy 4th.
take her easy, folks.